What is up, good people, and welcome back to another episode of the Hook It podcast. Before we crack on with today's podcast, I want to take a few minutes of your time to explain to you about Project CHAINGE and give you a little bit of the backstory as to why this thing has come around. Around 2.5 years ago, I launched the very first episode of this podcast. At the time, it was a huge leap into the unknown, but I was already a massive podcast fan and I had a very vague idea as to what I wanted to try and achieve with this platform. One of the main objectives was to put a podcast out to the world that was centered around my love for all things two-wheeled and action sports, but also at some point be able to use the platform for some good, as well as along the way be able to motivate, inspire, and hopefully make some people laugh as well. So I'm extremely happy to have launched Project CHAINGE last week. Project CHAINGE is a brand new initiative that is centered around this podcast, but also the wider mountain bike and cycle community, bringing everyone together to try and be a force for good and provide real change into the people's lives who really deserve it. The first two charities that I would like to try and support are Sheffield Cycling for All and Mental Health Cycling. Sheffield Cycling for All provides active, inclusive weekly sessions for children and adults with a range of disabilities. The sessions are run by qualified and experienced cycle leaders, but the project relies very, very heavily on volunteers. They use adapted bikes like tandems and wheelchair trikes to get disabled people out cycling. But unfortunately, their funding has come to an end. The bikes are getting super tired and they actually don't have enough bikes to fulfill the demand of people wanting to come and cycle. So they usually get around 40 to 50 people each week, but they only have 20 bikes. And like I say, a lot of these bikes are starting to get tired, and I would like to try and raise some money to be able to buy a adapted bike for them. So that's the first charity that I would like to try and support. The second one is actually run next door to Sheffield Cycling for All, and it's called Mental Health Cycling. And it's a brand new initiative. They use the same bikes a lot of the time, but they also have their own bikes as well. But the project provides mental health patients time off of wards and out of hospital into the fresh air and onto two wheels. What an amazing thing these people are doing. They have their own fleet of bikes, but a lot of them are getting tired and they're just worn out and they don't have enough of them. So again, I'd really like to raise enough money to be able to buy a couple of step-through bikes that can be used for mental health cycling as well. Anybody who donates any money, you basically will also go into a prize draw to win a bunch of goodies. We've got signed merchandise from Danny Macaskill, Ali Clarkson, the Crankworks team, Geordie Lunn, Fast House, the guys at 18 Bikes have given a couple of things as well. There's 35 bikes, brake pads. We're going to give a year's worth of brake pads away. We've got Saks underwear. There's tons of stuff which I'm trying to keep people updated with on social media. But if you don't follow us on social media, then that's fine. You know about it here. So to donate, pause this podcast right here. Scroll down into the show description and you will see a donate button. Please just donate as much as you can afford. It's Christmas coming as well. I'd like to get this all wrapped up before Christmas and be able to give this bike or these bikes away before Christmas. So that's it, guys. I hope you guys can see the vision, and I hope you want to help me provide some good for some people and use this platform and this amazing engaged podcast community that we're building to be a force for good and to make some changes in people's lives. So like I say, there is a link in the show description. Just click donate. Make sure you leave your full name so that we can draw your name out of the raffle to win prizes. Oh, we've also got some signed goods from Ollie Wilkins too, before I forget. And that's it, guys. Please donate a little bit of money this Christmas. Whether you're going to, I don't know, let's say you're going to buy someone a pair of socks, just tell them you've donated to buy a bike for a disabled person. That's way cooler than a pair of crappy socks. And also, don't forget, this podcast is entirely free and always has been. So if you've enjoyed maybe only one episode, it must be worth a couple of quid. So head over, hit donate, and let's try and raise some cash and do something really, really good this Christmas. Okay, let's get on with the podcast. This episode is once again supported by 35bikes.com. 35 Bikes are dedicated to providing you with the best bike components for the best prices. So with winter now firmly set in here in the UK, it's time to make sure you've got some fresh brake pads up in that bike and also a fresh mudguard as well to keep that knit out of your face. Head to 35bikes.com, enter the promo code podcast, and you'll be able to get 20% off your entire order and also take advantage of free shipping. We are also, once again, supported by our very good friends over at saxunderwear.com. And Christmas is just around the corner. You're going to be looking for gift ideas. So if you don't want to buy socks, you don't want to buy ties, you don't want to buy someone any more of that poisonous alcohol, and you've already donated to Project Change, then what better thing to buy than to buy somebody a pair of Sax underwear? There's a bunch, and I mean a bunch, of benefits. The first one being, they won't smell when you're around the person. All Sax underwear is anti-microdermal, which means it doesn't smell. They won't be doing that annoying thing of itching the balls when you stood next to them in a public place. Second best thing. All Sax underwear comes with their patented ballpark pouch. Third best thing. They'll love you forever. You'll get endless love off the person you've bought a pair of Sax for. So easy as that. Head to saxunderwear.com for more information, or just type in Sax underwear into your favourite search engine, whether it's Google, Yahoo, or even Ask Jeeves. You'll find Sax right there. And that's it. A little bit of main event, and let's get on with this podcast.
Welcome to the Hook It podcast, endorsed by @OW_23. Add me, tag me, follow me, please follow me.
What's up, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Hook It podcast. Hopefully you didn't mind that little bit of an extended intro. I thought it was important to explain a little bit more about Project Change, and hopefully you've got to this point in the podcast and you've already donated a little bit of money. I can't stress how important this could be for people, but also moving forward, I would love to keep Project Change going as a national and maybe a global incentive to raise money for bike-related projects and charities. So please try and support it if you can. And if also, one thing I did forget to mention in the intro, if you could share the Just Giving page, that would be incredible. So please, if you can do that, head back and do it. Today's episode is a little bit of a different one. I was invited to Canyon's press day for the launch of the new Neuron CF, and I grabbed a very quick chat with Michael Staab, who is the project manager at Canyon. We didn't plan this episode. I just had some stuff in the van and we were like, let's just sit down and have a chat. Like, we were chatting anyway, and I just thought, well, let's just record it. We're here. Let's just get on with it. So very, very different episode to what we usually do. Hopefully you enjoy it and learn a little bit more about Michael and also Canyon and this new bike. And that's it. Let's rock and roll. Let's get on with it. Enjoy.
Explanation why the German language is so hard. It sounds so hard that people always think you have a fight. Schmetterling actually is a butterfly. And I mean, butterfly in English is really like lovely sounding, and Schmetterling is really like very German.
It's perfect. All right, that's a perfect way to start the podcast, I think. Yeah, it's all good, man. So, quick intro. I am sat with Michael Staab, who is a designer.
Product manager.
Product manager, at Canyon. And this is a bit crazy because it's the first ever press camp I've ever been on. And it was really nice of the guys from Canyon to invite me today after I've been exchanging emails with Holly quite a little bit about all sorts of stuff which is going on. I did an episode a couple of months ago which was called Shop Talk, which is basically where we got 4 independent bike shop owners to sit around a table and we just had a discussion. So I spoke to Holly because I wanted to get her and Canyon's perspective on the direct-to-consumer industry. So ever since then, me and Holly have been chatting, and she said, look, we're having this press day to launch the new bike, which we'll no doubt chat about in a second. And here we are in a beautiful, stately home in Surrey, I believe, aren't we?
Yeah.
In Surrey. Yeah. I forget where I am sometimes, man. So Michael has just given an amazing presentation on the new bike, which is going to launch
tomorrow.
It launches tomorrow officially, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so when this podcast goes out, it will already be out. Called the Neuron CF. And he just gave a presentation about it, and I thought what we'd try and do is give a bit of an insight into Michael and his job, and also come into a press camp as well, because not many people will probably see this side of the industry. And for me, it's pretty cool to be here and have the opportunity to come and check this stuff out and see some old friends as well. Like, there's a bunch of people here I've not seen for a little while, like Jamie from Wide Open and stuff. So to kick this off, would you be able to just sort of describe your job at Canyon and what it is that you do?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, we just before the podcast here, we talked about briefly what it means to be in the industry and get a profession out of your hobby.
Yeah.
And actually, that's where I ended up. So I'm with Canyon since 1990. So I was with the company before it even was Canyon, because Canyon was a bicycle shop, an independent bicycle dealer.
Right.
And I was a sales rep there.
Is that right?
So I thought I really like mountain biking, and I started mountain biking in 1987. And actually, I was a sales rep at a clothing store, and I sold wedding suits. And I was like, that's not what I want to do for the rest of my life. And again, I was really into mountain biking, and I thought, okay, I'll start as a sales rep here at a bicycle shop. And that was in 1990. And even from the start, we did consumer direct. We had a mail order catalog for triathlon components and triathlon bikes, because triathlon stuff at the time was really hard to get. And right from the start, we were quite successful with this catalog. So it was mail order right from the start.
Right.
And then in the mid 90s, we started to do our first mountain bikes, and the whole progress of the company to me is pretty amazing. I mean, it's still kind of weird to me when I walk a trade show, and as you said, we have many friends here in this industry, which is great about the industry. And there are people that back in the day I only knew from the magazines, and like Mountain Bike Action, it was my Bible, and I read it from page to page, and not only once but more often. And now these people are approaching me and hey Michael, how are you doing? How are you doing? I was like, I'm like, talking to me? Just me? So it's still kind of weird, and that's when you end up with your hobby as your profession. But you have a lot of people in this industry here that were the same way. So as a product manager, when we started to do our own bikes back in the mid 90s, I was involved in the process of the strategy and the specification of the bikes pretty much right from the start. And when I remember we had the first Eurobike show where we had a booth, I was answering some questions about the bikes that we just released to the public on a German news board, and my boss came by and I was like, hey, I need to tell the people what I'm actually doing here at the company. I'm just going to tell them I'm the product manager. And he was like, yeah, whatever floats your boat. And so
you made yourself a job.
Right. So I ended up being a product manager. And product management means, for one part, it's a strategy behind the bike. So you, as a product manager, are responsible for the lineup in a way that you say, okay, I think we need a 130mm 29er, just like the new one that we introduced here. And these are the key points that I want the bike to have, like the geometry, the tire width that fits, the chock length, blah, 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 blah. And then you have a team of an engineer, a designer, a graphic designer, and a product manager, and we all together in a team, we we develop the bike. So that doesn't necessarily mean that all the ideas are coming from the product manager. It's not that way. The ideas are coming from the other guys that are probably smarter than I am, like the engineers. But as the product manager, you have to take the direction in the project, and you have to have a clear vision of what you want the bike to be, and how it fits in the general lineup of the whole lineup. And then you do the specification. So you have a you have a given price point, or you just figure out the price point, and you have a given margin that you have to reach, and then you try your best to balance that bike out for this price point. And this is more or less the daily business. And then there is some overlap with the marketing guys, like going for a press camp and then introducing the bike. And I mean, the product managers, they put so much thought into the bike, so they are probably the best guys to introduce the bike, because they know the deepest.
You really know everything about it.
They really know what
you've been involved with the whole process, haven't you?
Yeah.
I'm interested, just quickly, is this your first podcast?
This is my first podcast. Yeah,
oh, wow. Yeah. I love taking podcast virginities. Yeah. So you said that a lot of information sort of filters through to you. How do you do that internally? Do you have meetings? Is it email? You have meetings usually, you throw ideas around.
Yeah.
And let's say somebody comes up with the idea of this bike, for example, the Neuron CF.
Yeah.
How quickly can you take that from idea to like being sat here right now?
That totally depends on the whole capacities that you have in the engineering. So and the Neuron took more or less 2 years.
Did it?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but there are some things that we took over from the Spectral, for instance. Yeah. So the whole Spectral, Lux, and the Neuron, that was one big project. And there were some things that we just took over from the Lux and from the Spectral. Okay. So that took up the speed a bit. And yeah, but for instance, we had the Fat Bike, the Dude. That is also a bike that I'm responsible for as a product manager. And that was a bike that I just did out of curiosity. I really liked the way the Fat Bike rides. And I was like, hey, I really enjoyed it. And I hope there are more people than I am that I enjoy that, that will enjoy that. And we had a young engineer just coming from the university, and it was a perfect first project for him.
Right.
To say, okay, he's a young engineer, this is a hardtail, this is not too complicated, he can learn a lot of stuff here, so let's do the Fat Bike. And that took less than 1 year.
Did it?
Yeah.
And that's quite a fast process in terms of taking it from idea to reality. Right. Yeah. That's interesting. Like I say, let's be brutally honest, I'm slightly underprepared for this because I had no idea we'd record anything, and I definitely didn't know it would be with you. But obviously there's a bunch of different questions I've got. I mean, just to unpack something really quickly, before you started at Canyon, were you already an avid mountain biker? Have you worked in product management before?
No, not at all.
No, you were selling wedding suits, right?
I was selling wedding suits,
right.
yeah.
Okay.
And it's, again, not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, because maybe main reason was because I had to wear a tie every day. and I'm not the type of guy to wear a tie every day.
No, me either.
So maybe that was the main reason. I don't know. No, I wasn't. I was always into all kind of off-road stuff. So even before they were mountain biking, I always wanted to have a BMX bike, but my parents refused to give it to me because they said it was too dangerous. Mm-hmm. So I took the classic 70s style foldable bike from my mom and took off all the fenders and the rack and stuff and went into the woods with that bike.
Sweet.
So with coaster brakes, and that was probably a lot less safe than going out with a BMX bike. But yeah, anyway, so I was always out in the woods and enjoying riding my bike there.
Yeah.
And when the first mountain bikes came along, I was really like, hey, that's what I want.
This is what you want to do.
And so from the first salary, more or less, that I got, I bought my first mountain bike back in 1987. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So,
and then a couple of years later, you started at Canyon.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And did you say at the time that was an independent bike shop?
Yep.
Okay. And they were selling other people's products, and then it slowly progressed into being a direct-to-consumer bike brand. Okay. How did the mail order stuff work? That's crazy thinking back before websites and stuff. I mean, I'm just outside the millennial bracket, but even so, I mean, people used to like...
Yeah, they used to. I mean, sending a fax was already advanced technology back then.
Yeah. So you get a fax, someone wants this bike, and you just...
Yeah, and they send postcards, and
wow.
yeah.
How crazy is that to think back? People used to do that. Wow.
Yeah, we had that catalog, and we shipped that out in quite large numbers, and we also had it as an accessory to some German magazines. So once a year, it was included in a German tour magazine, I believe, and I think a tour magazine we had it, and so we had I don't know, 100,000 catalogs out there to the public.
Wow.
And then we had quite a lot of people coming to Koblenz, to our store, to pick up their bike or to get a fitment and stuff like that.
Did it ever branch out into more bike shops, or did it just stay as one bike shop?
No, there was one bike shop.
There's just one bike shop, right?
Yeah.
Right? Wow, that's crazy. Okay, so it must be cool because you've worked there all this time to see all this development. How many members of staff were there when you first started?
Yeah, that's kind of overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah,
It's,
I bet.
especially next week we will have the Christmas party, and that's really weird to me because there are so many people that I have not ever seen. I'm like, hey, they work in the same company here I am, and where is this huge crowd coming from? Because I remember Christmas party when we were like 10 people.
So there was like around 10 people when you first started.
Right.
That's insane.
So that's.
I think Holly was saying before, I think now there's like 800.
Yeah, something like that.
800 people in the company, which that's a lot of people, isn't it? So
yeah,
it's a fast expansion almost as well.
Yeah, very fast expansion. But I mean, it's because we do everything in house. I mean, we do the development, the marketing, the sales, the service, the production.
Yeah.
It's everything. Everything is based in Koblenz, and that's the reason why we have so many employees, because we have every segment that we do by ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think, like I was saying before I did the shop talk episode, I researched into a few direct to consumer brands, and I'll be honest, I own a distribution company which sells to independent retailers. So it's a bit of it's always a talking point, out on the road. People always ask about Canyon or YT or whatever. So I did a bit of research, and when you look into Canyon and like you said, the equipment you guys have got, and just the operation in general is just huge. It's until I started really reading into it, I think I didn't quite realise at what scale Canyon's operating.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, do you know roughly how many bikes you guys sell per year?
We don't talk too much about the numbers here.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's understandable. But yeah, I mean, when you see online, there's pictures of like the warehouse and it's all robotic, and it's just mind-blowing, to be fair, but it's really cool as well. I mean,
it's quite huge, but it's not so easy going to direct consumer stuff. I mean, we have some brands that think like, hey, okay, we go customer direct, and then they figure out it's not so easy because again, you have to be prepared. You have to have all the stuff in house. You have to give the answers to the end consumers, and it's pretty complicated.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
So do you know was Canyon pretty much the first direct-to-consumer bike brand then?
We were the first one who got really big, I would say. Okay. Yeah. So there were other consumer direct bike brands. I remember that back in the early 90s in the US there was Supergo that was owned by Performance Bikes,
right?
And some other smaller brands, but also our vendors like the big bicycle component makers. They had to get used to that. I remember very clearly that in the beginning. They came to us when something went wrong with one of their products. They came to us with like, hey, it's always you guys. It's only you guys that are complaining. Nobody else is complaining. Yeah, that's because we don't have one customer walking into a bicycle shop complaining about some stuff and getting fixed by the bicycle shop owner. We have maybe 200 customers yelling at us at the phone because there's something wrong with your product. And that's the reason why we come to you first, because there's no filter.
There's no, exactly.
There's no filter in between.
Mouth, so to speak, Yeah, so it must be, Canyon are almost quite, what's the word? Important when it comes to new products and stuff like that, because you guys can almost test it and report straight back.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay, so do you often get a first look at stuff as well before it goes to market? Or?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's a job as a product manager.
Right,
yeah.
So you get a first look.
Yeah, and we work closely together with our vendors and also with the product management of our vendors. Yeah, for sure, we don't know their like 5 years ahead plan, but but other brands do that as well. I mean, they have some kind of ride camps. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to make your decision and to specify the bike, and then in ideal world, you have to ride the stuff beforehand. Some things you can guess just by Excel numbers, but you don't build a bike in Excel. I mean, you actually do, but you don't get the feel for the bike in Excel.
Yeah, up and ready. Yeah, for sure. So, how many other product designers do you have at Canyon?
That's a tough question. I don't know. So, at the mountain bike department, you have maybe 4.
Okay.
And then we have some more in the road category and in the urban category.
Okay. And do you all bounce ideas off each other, or do you get your own separate project?
No, we also exchange
information. So the new bike then, the Neuron that we've seen today,
yeah.
is a collaboration of everybody?
No, that's actually, it was more done by the mountain bike development part,
Right.
Because that's a very typical mountain bike. But some things that you see what the other guys are doing and you get inspired somehow, and
Okay, interesting. So if we could, something I'm really interested in is like the actual process of how it, how we end up with this bike sat here today.
Yeah.
So right from when we were talking before about the idea, what's the next? Can you talk a little bit about the actual stages of what you go through to get a bike to market?
Yeah, sure. With the Neuron it was quite easy because there already was a Neuron in the lineup, and that was a 120 millimeter 29er bike as well, but the geometry was not up to date anymore. Okay. It was an aluminum bike, and that was a bike that we developed 5 years ago. Okay. So typically a product cycle is maybe 3 to 4 years, and then the market tries to overtake itself, and especially on the mountain bike side, it was kind of a struggle in the previous years because of all the wheel sizes. I showed the Nerf CF in the presentation today, which is just 5 years old, and it looks
ancient, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It
looks almost unrideable with the 26-inch wheels, because also the way that you look at a bicycle, the way it changes. So maybe 5 years ago, a bike that we saw today, the Neuron CF, looked kind of weird with the big wheels and the long reach and stuff. But now the bike with the 26-inch wheels looks really weird to us, because we are used to what the bikes look like today. Yeah. So when you know, we have, let's say, a 3 to 4 year product cycle. Somewhere in the beginning of the product cycle, you already begin to think about the next generation and what you want to have here. And
how do you do that? Are you looking at market trends, because you almost can't see market trends because it's not there yet?
Yeah, you have to.
You're almost creating that.
Yeah, you have to kind of foresee that. The good thing at Canyon is that the product managers that we have, they are kind of prototypical for their category. Okay. So I'm a touring bike rider, so it makes sense that I do the touring bikes. Right. The gravity product manager, Daniel, he's really into all kinds of gravity riding. He's a really, really good rider, much better than I am. Our product manager for the marathon bikes actually competed in the Marathon Worlds this year. So quite an achievement for him there. Yeah. So he's a real good rider for his kind of category. And that definitely helps when you come back to what you really love to do, and when you get paid for what you love to do, you can sometimes get into this kind of flow. Yeah. It's kind of weird sometimes when I click a bike together on Excel with the spec. Yeah, I use this brake. Okay, at this price point. Okay, can I go for the more expensive saddle? No, I rather use the slightly lighter cassette, which is at this price. Okay, yeah, that works out. You get in the kind of flow when you do that bike, and the same thing is true when you talk to your designers and riders and the engineers about the geometry and the stuff. And for sure, sometimes the discussion can get a bit heated because we are all passionate about what we do.
Right, and you maybe all have different ideas and
yeah,
stuff.
Right. Yeah. But it's still quite a lot of fun.
Yeah, I bet.
Absolutely.
I bet.
Yeah.
So you have this idea, you come up with almost like a concept of what you're trying to make. Yeah. So then what's the next stage of that? How do you start building the bike? Almost? Then
you write a thing that we in Germany call the Lastenheft, which is again a very German word. I don't know. It's a summary of what the bike should be. I'm just failing to
you write it down about
you write it down,
geometry and stuff.
The basic idea about the geometry, about which components should fit. So the widest tire should fit is a 2.4 inch on 30 millimeter rim on the 29er. It should be whatever, one by only. It should be 130 millimeter fork. This is the basic geometry that I think about. This is the basic kinematics that I have in mind. And this is the target weight. And also, very important, this is the target price. Yeah. That's the target quote that I want to get from my vendors for this frame. And then you go to the designers and to the engineers, and the designer he has a general picture in mind over the whole range. So the typical Canyon design language, and I think the Neuron that they show here that shows that quite well. And then they come up with ideas. And as a product manager, you have to, at the end, ultimately decide, okay, this is the direction, or this is not. It's cool, but I think we should go in this direction. So stuff like that.
Right.
And also you have to present it to the board of directors and to the CEO and the CTO, and you kind of have to. That's the first time that you actually have to sell the bike.
Right.
You have to sell it.
You almost have to pitch it. And see if they'll get behind it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So actually we do that already with a 3D printed prototype. So 3D prints here, they really are a big benefit and a big help, because back in the day, 10 years ago, we just had a 2D drawing or maybe a 3D drawing, and you had to imagine what the bike actually looks like. But now, especially on a carbon fiber bike, it's really critical. With 3D printing, you can print a complete bike.
Wow.
And have it assembled with all the correct parts, and have the bike, you just cannot ride it, but you can see how it looks like. And I mean, in the bicycle industry, we spend quite a lot of time looking at bicycles.
Yeah.
And this definitely helps, because when you have a sense for the proportions and how the bikes look like, that you, as a product manager, you can also say, okay, I like this design or this. I mean, ultimately, the designer, he's the expert. And he has the final word, more or less, on the design. But as a product manager, you have to sometimes keep the direction.
Yeah.
So
that's super interesting. So that's all done in-house as well, 3D printing?
Yeah, sure.
Wow. Yeah. How long have you been doing that?
We just very recently bought a 3D printer where we can print frames as a whole. Wow. Up until last year, we outsourced that, but now it really pays off to have a 3D printer that big in the house. But we also sometimes do that in like 1/10 scale. Okay. So you have that mini bicycle in Barbie size. So you can have Barbie as a testimonial on the bicycle.
For Barbie and Ken.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay, so then once board of directors give it the okay, then almost does it go to production? Then
you have to do the testing. I mean, so the Neuron that we have here today, we are talking about a so-called Category 3 bike.
Right.
So there are different categories, but that's a system that was developed by ASTM in the US, and it's kind of used more or less the same way in the whole industry. So Category 1 is a road bike. Category 2 is an urban bike and a cross bike, for instance, or a gravel bike. Category 3 is a mountain bike that's used on light trails, like you can jump off like 60 centimeters in a bike park or stuff like that, but you won't do the rampage with the bike. Okay. Category 4 is the more serious trail bikes, you to go into bike parks and stuff. And Category 5 is a full-blown DH bike that can take a lot of abuse. Okay. And so we have quite some testing machines, and then you try to achieve the lightest frame possible that still can take the most abuse that you have to take for this certain category. So take Category 4, more abuse than Category 3. So frame is maybe a bit heavier, and so Category 3 can be a bit lighter. And this is also something that you have in mind when you set up the strategy for the bike. Yeah,
so there's almost certain bits of leeway you can have to make it fit into that category.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand. All right, so how come you ended up bringing out the new Neuron CF? Was there a gap in that market, did you feel?
Yeah. So with the carbon fiber material, one of the real benefits is that you can have a much nicer design approach, because you are much more free to design actually the tube shapes and stuff. So it was only natural that we go for carbon fiber here. And I mean, we also have a Neuron AL at lower price points, so aluminum version at lower price points. But for the price points that I had in mind for this bike here, carbon fiber was a natural selection.
Okay, yeah. All right, excellent. And it's a 130?
Yeah.
130 mil, yeah. And I like your analogy before, how it's Gran Turismo. So it's kind of like got a few extras, like a Gran Turismo car, like a GT. And that's pretty cool. I like that you've done that. So it's just something, it's kind of like, I don't know, I guess a few little extras. It just maybe feels a little bit nicer. It's got like better spec on it as well.
Is that the reason you use that analogy? Or?
Yeah, the idea behind that is, I mean, actually it's a trail bike.
Yeah.
But trail bikes are getting more and more aggressive. And I see why, I see the reason for that. And I think that a lot of people benefit from the aggressive, longer, slacker,
Yeah.
more slacker geometries. But I also see quite a few, not quite a few, quite a lot of people that can really benefit from a bike that is not so super aggressive. Okay. I mean, still, when we compare the old Neuron, the bike that we had previously, and the new Neuron is longer, it's slacker. But I wanted to have a bike that's confidence-inspiring for the typical rider that I had in mind. That doesn't mean that a more aggressive rider cannot ride with the bike. He will still have a lot of fun. It was one of the feedbacks that we received from the press camp in Portugal that we had 2 weeks ago. That also more experienced rider really liked the way the bike handles because it's really actually very easy to maneuver. So when you pick a line and you end up with like, oh, that's kind of a wrong line, you can still correct it. So for the really gnarly stuff that you go really fast, there are bikes out there that are more stable for sure. Yeah. But the truth is that quite a lot of people out there, they don't go that fast.
Yeah, true.
And so I really believe that this bike helps these type of customer there.
Yeah. And you were saying before, obviously, this one's got a 60mm stem on the bigger bikes, which to me initially you're like, that's quite long. Yeah. But when you were explaining it before about just having more room to turn and stuff, like, it does kind of make sense. Yeah. I'm looking forward to riding it tomorrow. I think it should be fun.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to your feedback.
Yeah, I've got a totally blank canvas at the minute. I've not been riding much recently, so it's a totally blank canvas. So I'm coming at this. It should be pretty exciting. How's the feedback been so far from the press? Has it been?
Very good.
Has it?
Very good. Yeah. So I'm really. I mean, that's always. You always have the devil on your shoulder. You're just like, hey. You're wrong, and other people won't like it, and maybe it's only you, and then it's really good to get that feedback that the people actually like what you're doing, and that's really nice.
I guess sometimes you just have to take criticism on the chin and just go on, don't you? It is what it is.
Yeah, sure, but I mean, I see the point that people say, hey, I wanted to have a longer bike, but there are bikes out there in the market, and when you look at our portfolio as a whole, in general, there are also bikes in our portfolio for these type of riders. Right. But for this customer I see here, I think we made a pretty cool geometry there.
Yeah. Like I say, I'm excited to ride it tomorrow. It should be fun. I've never been riding around here either. Yeah. So it's going to be it should be a good laugh. What do you see coming in the future? Obviously, you're kind of ahead of the curve. Yeah. So what do you see coming as far as geometry changes, or in general from like mountain bike industry? What do you think's happening? It's a big question, I know.
Yeah, it's a big question. I'm thinking about how the influence of the eMTB will be on the analog mountain bike.
Right. Do you have an e-bike?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we have the Spectral, and we are also launching the Neuron on the e-mountain bike version of the Neuron tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's tomorrow as well? Yeah. Okay, because I seen it in the press pack and I was like, we didn't talk about it. Okay, so that's tomorrow too. Yeah.
And I mean, we talked about how the perspective on the appearance of a bike changed. Yeah. And I think that the appearance of the eMTB, which is a bit different from the standard mountain bike, this will also change the way we look at standard mountain bikes, at analog mountain bikes, like tube diameters and stuff. So, like for instance, as I said in the presentation here, the tube diameters on the different frame sizes of the Neuron are different. So the extra large has really a big down tube, but when you look at the down tube now, when you're used to the integrated batteries, and I mean the really huge down tubes on eMTB, it doesn't appear so big anymore. But maybe like 2 years ago, you would have thought like, hey, this is a huge down tube.
You would.
Yeah. Okay. But it's so this will change the visuals and also the implementation of electronic stuff. Like, I mean, the ultimate goal should be to make it more approachable, to make it easier for the riders.
Certainly, you know, as we all know, it's a growing sector. You know, the more and more I'm out doing my job, you see more and more bike shops being open to e-bikes. I think initially there was a bit of a, you know, the old school or maybe core mountain biker hated them. But as they're getting better and better, more people are starting to resonate towards it. All right, I'll get one. Especially if you're going to bike parks and stuff. I mean, it's perfect. Do your own uplifts. Amazing. You know, I've got a few friends that pretty much enjoy riding their e-bike a little bit more than the normal bike these days because they are getting better.
Yeah, I think there's room for every kind of mountain bike. I think EMTB is not going to totally replace the standard mountain bike, the analog mountain bike. I think it will be an addition to the mountain bike sport, and it totally depends on where you live.
Yeah, it does definitely.
Yeah, so
it does. I mean, for yourself, is it quite hilly where you are? Or
yeah, it is.
mountainous?
Yeah, but the climbs are not that long.
Right.
So when I would live in the Alps, maybe a different story, because what I found most amazing about EMTB is that you can climb up technical climbs that you will never ever do on a standard mountain bike, and that's actually quite a lot of fun. But again, there is room for both types of mountain bikes. So when you come from an e-mountain bike, which is 8-9 kilos heavier than a standard mountain bike, and you go back to a standard mountain bike, sometimes you are amazed how active the standard mountain bike feels. So I heard some people already that were like, hey, I will only go e-mountain biking, like 1 year ago, that they come back to a standard mountain bike and they're like, hey, this is actually pretty fun too. I think there's room for these two kind of riders.
Too, Is there anything else you see happening in the world of mountain biking which sort of stands out as something that's going to totally change? I don't know because it's weird, like you said, you know, you look at that bike from, what was it, 4 years ago?
5 years ago.
5 years ago. It's so alien to look at, isn't it? It's like, what the hell? It's almost hard to envisage what something's going to look like in 5 years' time. I know there's a few manufacturers leaning towards a smaller back wheel. Again, I don't fully understand that myself, if I'm being totally honest, but especially for downhill racing. Yeah. Maybe a 29er front, 650B rear wheel.
That was kind of under the radar so far because it was not officially legal by the UCI, but they changed that. And that makes sense. I mean, especially for smaller frame sizes. I mean, the struggle that we have with the 29er wheel is just that it's pretty big, and when you have a steep descent and you go behind the saddle, or you use your body to go not so much or go more to the rear wheel, and then you end up with touching the rear wheel, that goes away with a smaller. And I mean, quite a lot of EMTBs already have that, and we also have that on our Spectral On, and there it makes a lot of sense because we use a plus tire in the rear and the 29er tire in the front, because the 29er front is much more precise than the plus tire, and you have the added traction on the rear on the EMTB. And again, so you get used to different wheel sizes, and that will also kind of transfer in the standard mountain bike probably in the future. We will see.
Sure. Time will tell.
Sure.
Time will tell. All right, should we get something to eat? It's been fun to sit and chat with you, dude. Like I say, it was a bit of a spontaneous podcast. We didn't really expect to be doing this, but thank you for taking the time out for sure, and just sitting and having a brief chat. And let's go eat some food, man.
Thanks. Thanks for having me here.
You're more than welcome, mate. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Done.
Good.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Really, really appreciate you taking the time out to listen to this episode. Again, it was unplanned, but it's nice to sit and chat with Michael. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and if you have, don't forget to follow Canyon. It's at Canyon on everything, Facebook, Instagram, etc. Most importantly, if you have enjoyed listening to this or any of these podcast episodes, please show your appreciation by donating just a couple of pounds or whatever you can afford to Project Change, because we are going to try and make a change and make a difference in people's lives before Christmas by buying bikes for disabled people to get them out cycling, and also people that are suffering with mental health problems too. It would mean a lot if you could do that. And if you do donate, you will go into a prize draw to win a bunch of different gifts. We've got signed goods from the likes of Danny Maccaskill, Steve Pete, Loose Dog, Sambo, 18 Bikes have donated some things. We've got so much stuff to give away, so keep up to date with us on Instagram and Facebook. It's at The Hook It Podcast on everything. We've got a closed Facebook group. Just search The Hook It Podcast and you'll find it there. We've also got a mailing list. If you want to be on that, hit it up. You'll find it in the show description. And don't forget, show description is most important. Once you finish listening, hit that show description, hit the donate button, and be a part of doing something really good this Christmas. Can't emphasize that enough. I think I've done everyone's head in, but there we go. All right, folks. It's a wrap. Keep it real. Enjoy.